You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Good morning to everybody out there. Kind of throws off my routine. Welcome on, welcome all. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese. Zach Chavalella is in the background brewing his coffee right now. I kind of gave him a little bit of tiring workout already this morning.
We're gonna put the store link up probably later today.
Yes.
But here it is. Get your Flipping the Birds mug. I got mine. It holds coffee. There's that. Anyway.
Eric said whoever buys
enough merch shilling at 9 a.m.
Eric said whoever buys a Flipping the Birds mug, he will actually go in person and shake your hand.
I don't know if anybody wants that. Like, I feel like that's going to deter people from buying a mug. They're going to be like, yeah, why does he need to know where I live? I don't need to know.
But you know what we do need to know? We do need to know the fact that the Eagles did win last night, 34-29, in their quote-unquote home opener that felt like an away game because of the amount of Packer fans that are in Brazil.
Well, hold on, because I heard it the other way around. It sounded like to me that when the Eagles scored early on that the Brazil, I guess the fans in Brazil were louder. Like, I thought the Eagles fans traveled well again.
You would have thought so, but like throughout the game, like the Packers, it was mostly like it felt like their vibe. It just felt like it was like a home game for them. I did look where I was reading, but they're actually, I don't know if it's because of the colors, but there's a lot of Packer fans in Brazil alone.
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't have guessed. But also at the same time, it's like when they showed like parts of the crowd, there was a guy wearing a Seahawks jersey, and me 4 drinks in last night, I was like, what does he care? Like, why are you here? Like, what do you care? I'm like, oh, right. Brazil just likes sports, and therefore they want to see a game. See, there goes me thinking, right, also 4 drinks will do the talking for you by that point.
It looked like there was a huge mix. Like you had like this, like every international game, so many random jerseys.
Yeah.
They're there because they want to see the sport, which it's great for those that are enjoying it internationally. It's not so great for those of us that enjoy the game locally. So the Eagles, they did get taken away a home game. But nonetheless, they scored out the victory. 34-29. What's your recap of the game?
That it was ugly. Absolutely ugly defense did their job when the offense couldn't, and then when the offense started scoring, I feel like, the defense was slipping. Like, Jaden Reed is a playmaker. Jaden Reed is the reason why the Packers were competitive. There was a touchdown, as a matter of fact, early in the game that would have been Jaden Reed's touchdown. It was the penalty nullified it. Yes. So that could have been enough there, honestly, to give Green Bay a win. It was sloppy football all around. Philadelphia scores, plus 30 points. I believe that's the third year in a row that Kellen Moore's began the season with 30-plus points. Maybe even more. I know at least 3. So we see that trend keep going. But, when you say sloppy in week 1, you come to expect it. So both sides, like Green Bay, was sloppy. Mm-hmm. Also, Philadelphia, very sloppy. Once they get these things all kind of ironed out, and kind of like we were saying in the preview, we're probably not going to have a good gauge of the Eagles until like week 6. I don't think it's going to take until week 6 to look smoother. But week 1 football, to score 30 points against a team that will absolutely be a playoff team, that certainly should be a playoff team.
It's very dependent on the Jordan Love injury.
Well, he was walking off the field towards the end, admittedly with teammates, kind of underneath his arms there. But he was at least like able to sort of walk on his own power. Now, if you slow down the video, it looks like his knee popped. So there's obviously concern. But
It's tough. It
I
greatly
do
sucks.
believe that if he misses time, it won't be a lot of time.
Okay, that's fair. Well, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Zach. What's your, what's
Hello,
your
everyone. I got coffee now. I'm excited. I'm ready to talk some birds.
what's your early recap of last night's game?
I'm still hot. Well, I was thoroughly not enjoying myself for the early beginnings of the game. At least watching the offense. The first 2 turnovers, obviously, egregious, just terrible mistake by Jalen Hurts. And then later the botched snap. It's just beyond infuriating, especially when everybody said that the starters should play in preseason. The only person who did not say the starters should play in preseason is Nick Sirianni. And once again, we are seeing how that affects the starters. It makes no sense to not play the starters. Every other competitive team plays the starters. The defensive starters played. And to start the game, the defensive starters looked pretty damn good. So despite the win, and I'll get to the happy side of things, I'll get to the good stuff. I started off the night, a little pretty pissed off at Nick Sirianni, and I feel rightfully so. Now, that being said, as the game went on, started feeling better and better. The offense started clicking. Saquon Barkley's a monster. Howie Roseman has saved the season despite Nick Sirianni. And on top of that, it seemed like the focus was shifting where the offense started performing better, and it seemed like the defense was performing worse. And not that you can just look at the box score and sum it up that way, but the fact that they held the Packers to fewer points, and I get it because the turnovers weren't there. That's a big factor as to why the score was higher in the first half of the Packers in the second. But considering how the Eagles defense held them after those turnovers, all I'm getting at is that it was impressive that despite giving up big plays for yardage gains in the second half, the defense still did not break. So I just say that to say throughout the entire game, the defense heavily impressed me. And that was probably the best thing that I could have seen coming into week 1.
I think what was really extremely, and obviously we'll get into what impressed us all, but just to recap, to piggyback off of that, the red zone defense was like top notch last night. Like as many times as the offense put them in a bad position, these guys did not break, and it was a sight for sore eyes because it was like, wow, like this could actually be a good thing for the Eagles this year. But I'm very happy to hear you say that Nick Sirianni is already pissing you off.
I'm done. There comes a certain point where like Paisan just starts to not mean anything, and you kind of lose that card to draw on. So, still a likable guy. I
Did you
can't
see the
prove
pressure?
this yet. I still have a bit of a feeling that he's influencing the offense.
I agree.
And I do not like that. So we'll see how the year carries on. But I liked certain things I saw from Kellen Moore. I think that the way that he worked on picking up blitzes with Jalen Hurts is incredible. I think that the early results of that are fantastic. Green Bay has a talented rushing attack or rushing defense, I should say. So I feel pretty encouraged by that. But looking at the play calling, still a bit of Sirianni in some of those calls. So that gives me a little bit of concern.
And to kind of continue with that, so we can all agree preseason is a vital part of the game of football. Come season time, like there's no reason that Jalen and Cam should not have gotten any in-game reps this preseason. joint practices are great. They're all fine and dandy. But in-game is a completely different monster. And that showed last night just how not far along or how not comfortable they are currently in their current state. As for Nick Sirianni's imprint, I didn't want to assume, and I felt like it still felt a little bit like 2023, like, okay, like what the hell? Like this still kind of feels a little bit like the same offense. But I do feel like, Kellen Moore's offense also kind of shined a little bit when you saw the little short passes, when you saw the Devontae Smith passes, the big AJ Brown pass, the runs with Saquon. But again, like even in my fantasy football chat outside of PSN, like the main thing was like this doesn't look like Kellen Moore's offense. And if a fan that's not a fan of the Eagles can see that, then the Eagles are in for a rude awakening if this does not change come for the rest of the season.
My greatest fear. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, just to kind of piggyback off what you both guys brought up in terms of Sirianni maybe having a little bit of influence on the offense still, and Moore's debut pretty much in general. Next Gen Stats put out a tweet. I kind of bookmarked it just to save it for this. In Kellen Moore's debut as Eagles offensive coordinator, the offense used motion in 48 of 73 plays, 65.8%. Their highest mark in a single game since 2020. Okay. Last season, the Eagles used motion at the lowest rate league-wide, 35.1. So huge step up, right? Just with Moore being a coordinator, kind of like how we all assumed with motion. So now let's talk about Jalen Hurts and, kind of how effective he was with motion and without it, right? This is huge. Jalen Hurts was significantly more effective as a passer when the play featured motion, completing 15 of 21 for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. Pretty much the meat and potatoes of what made his game good last night. Because without motion, he was 5 for 13, 66 yards and 2 interceptions.
So now, what you're saying is, with Kellen Moore, with Kellen Moore style, Jalen Hurts was efficient. With Nick Sirianni style, he was stale.
Precisely. It's exactly what we saw last year in that sort of sense. But also, and here's the thing, right? We can say that because on a hunch, because that's what we did a lot last season, except the hunch was, except for Brian here, he's saying it was Sirianni. My hunch was it's got to be Brian Johnson. Yeah, well, we know it's Sirianni. So let's graduate on to this year. Now, the hunch that I had from yesterday is that you can't really blame Sirianni for those 2 interceptions. You can only blame Hurts because the first interception was thrown into triple coverage. And the second one, he was rolling out of the pocket and threw back in the center of the field to A.J. Brown. He's still forcing things. That's the thing that was very annoying for a lack of a better word from Jalen Hurts because he's a better quarterback than that. But there is a little bit of this kind of, all right, I can't find anything. Where's my go-to? Meanwhile, you had, I think it was either Johnny Wilson or is either Dotson, pretty much open within 10 yards. It would give you first down in the red zone. So to me, I'm sitting there going like, well, who cares where Brown is? Just find the guy or throw it to a fan. Because you don't want to throw that interception. There's decision making that I couldn't figure it out from Hurts, and by this stage in his career as a professional quarterback that's been into playoffs, that's appeared in the Super Bowl, this is the stuff that you shouldn't be seeing anymore. And 2 interceptions came from it yesterday.
Yeah, no, I think you're completely right. I sent Brian something, but I'm realizing now that even if I'm not the lead, I can still share screen. So I'm just gonna.
I'm over here panicking in the background trying to make things work, and it's not showing on my side.
No, you're good. You're good. All right. So this is one of the tweets that Eric was talking about, right? What does everyone notice looking at?
That's exactly the one.
This here.
This is from last night.
This is part of the pre-motion, and like that's all great. We're seeing a lot of green. That's fantastic.
But is
everyone seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah,
he's spreading the ball a little bit more, but he was very good at intermediate to short routes. That's what I'm seeing.
For sure, but there's also hardly anything over the middle again. Like that's still the concern. Now,
Which
now
a
part
little
of
bit
this,
more over the middle, though, however, than what we've seen last year. Just a
sure,
little bit more.
Short
part of
wise,
this
but
is
like
you look a lot to the left side, and some of these, like I remember Devontae Smith ran, and I was so glad that he did because I was shouting that they needed to run an in route when they were trying to pick up this first down late in the game. Some of these that you see like just outside that left, that left passing indicator right there. These are routes that have crossed over the middle, and that Hurts just got to while they were on that side of the field, and I think that's fine. So that adds a little bit more confidence to the situation. But effectively, one completed pass over the middle of the field is still a little bit concerning because that kind of also bleeds into the tendency of like Hurts was holding on to the ball a little long last night, right? And
yes.
so while you do see that, well, some of these plays did develop and he was able to get the ball to some of these guys who ran the route over the middle, at the same time, he's getting the ball to them late. Now they're open, they're completing the ball. That's fantastic. But he's not getting the ball to them in the middle of the field. And that's what I'm a little bit worried about going forward. And I wonder, the only thing that I can think of, considering that these routes did, as I said, did cross the middle, I'm wondering about Jalen Hurts and his ability to throw over the middle. So I need to still see. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm saying I need to see it.
I think there's a lack of confidence there because there was one play where Jalen he had AJ open and it was like a curl route. AJ was left, the cornerback was on the ground, and AJ was right there, and it was like little middle left, and Hurts looked at him but didn't throw it. And then as Hurts starts to rush, AJ starts to run a little bit of a slant, and he's wide open. And it seemed like Jalen just, I don't know if it's a lack of confidence or just just trying to. I don't want to say lack of trust because we know he trusts AJ Brown. It could just be a thing where he just doesn't trust himself. I mean, I'd rather my quarterback to throw the ball in that instant as opposed to putting his body on the line. Because you put your body on the line and you end up in a situation where like now you're wondering, hey, is my guy good for the rest of the season? Like the Packers are currently in with Jordan Love. But you're right. Like Jalen seems to have held the ball a little bit too long last night and put himself in damning situations. There was one play where it seemed like AJ, it was a fly route, and AJ completely beat his man. Jalen looked to the left and just chose not to throw it, which is the weirdest thing in the world because 2 years ago, Jalen's making that pass. So I don't know if it's the ghost of last season's 15 interceptions, but you started off 2 interceptions in this game with some pretty soft balls thrown in the middle of the field deep down. It's one of those things where, hey, he's still young, he can progress, or is it like are there too many people in his head at this very moment during the game?
I think that's a little bit of it. I mean, if he goes through the season and that kind of levels out, he cleans up his game, then you would assume that this will be maybe the first time in his career that he has a coordinator for back-to-back seasons. Right. So like maybe there are people that in his head. So maybe, you kind of want to limit, the influence there. But, kind of going to our hunch again, if Sirianni is, in the ear making some decisions and it's not just more, then it goes back to the biggest issue I believe all of us had where it's like, hey, Sirianni, say less. Like say less. Like, because if I'm going to my offense, I'm putting the entire offense in Moore's hands and saying, you're the voice. You're the one that's going out there and calling the plays. You're trusting in your players to make the right reads based on what you're calling. There should be no additional influence. So yeah, like you hope that it's not additional voices that Jalen's going, oh wait, he said look for this player on this, blah blah blah. Like because if there's additional voices, you're taking away from Jalen reading it.
Do you think Jalen has too much freedom? And I'm not trying to be this guy. Like I'm truly just like trying to understand this better. Like, do you think Jalen had too much freedom last night? Where like some of the calls at line like that he audible like could those plays have put him in a tougher position as opposed to the original play that was called?
I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
So do you think Jalen having a full freedom in his offense to make calls at the line of scrimmage like he did last night, calling the audibles? Do you think those plays that he called put himself in a a more dire position as opposed to the original play call?
Maybe at times, but I would also like you would hope that if you're calling an audible, that you're calling an audible that's gonna you see something actively on that defense.
I mean, he
That's
was
gonna
good against the
make
blitz last night, which is phenomenal. I think he was perfect against the blitz.
Yeah, and so to that extent, I don't know that it was such a detriment. I think his detriment was in the active moment, right? When you're trying to, toss the ball downfield, not throwing the ball away when there's no one open, like just forcing things. He absolutely forced things. I don't know that if at the line and switching up the audible that it was such a detriment. I think during the play when the execution was the detriment. But obviously, that's more of an obvious answer, but I think that's the answer versus, pre-snap.
Okay.
Listen, I'm not gonna be Liam about this. I'm not gonna say the Liam thing that he's been saying since last night.
What is the Liam thing? Because I've definitely missed that.
Yeah, what's the Liam thing?
You have to say it.
He may have brought up a former Eagles quarterback a good bit when talking about Jalen Hurts last night.
Dude, he always brings up Sam Bradford.
Not that one.
Okay. That's the Liam thing.
Of course, we did talk about Sam Bradford, but he was throwing around, the Carson Wentz word a lot last night.
Because
it's not a name anymore.
the Carson Wentz, because a little bit of hero ball action.
And that's the thing, Eric. You kind of hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah.
I do think it was hero ball. I don't think it was as bad as Carson.
No, definitely not.
But that being said, it's hero ball is not Jalen Hurts' game, right? Jalen Hurts is, cool, calm, collected. Like you have to stay that way. And it was very clear he was getting flustered last night. I think part of that is that he wasn't really able to get his own rushing attack going. And it did come a little later in the game. It still didn't look like actual Jalen Hurts, right? So
he still didn't look comfortable enough.
Yeah, and why exactly is that? I mean, I think Green Bay did a good job of kind of taking the edge away from Jalen Hurts, and so they did well in that regard. But I think that there was a little bit of kind of second guessing on Jalen Hurts' part, that kind of led to some of that initial hesitation. Now, as the game went on, I think particularly as plays broke down, he started to figure it out better and better. Now, he damn sure better learn how to slide proper. I'll tell you that right now. But
to his defense, it looked like he probably to his defense, it looked like he probably slipped on that play, which everybody
may have something to do with the field, but the field also did dry up as the game went on. So it's still not in great condition.
You know what it was? Somebody spit in that exact spot that he slipped in.
That's what it was.
Like the play before. I saw it happen.
That is what it was. Yeah, it was Xavier McKinney. You're right. Yeah,
it was that statue, dude. That statue spat right on that field.
It did. Lot. Yeah, no,
for a lot, dude.
Came alive and beat the living snot out of everybody. Exactly. The Simpsons was right. But other than that, I think that when you talk about his kind of taking over the game, not really hero ball, but just getting back to the audible calling that you're talking about. I think that is an example of him kind of taking the game in his own hands and it working. I think that he did well calling the game from the line of scrimmage. I think it's a large reason why the blitz pickup worked for Philadelphia at times. Now, they have to get the communication right, and that's partly because there's a brand new center. That's partly because it's a little bit of a different offense. Not as much as we would like to see, but it's a little bit of a different offense. Mm-hmm. So the communication was a little bit spotty at times. But I think I don't think they had a delay of game, and I think they only had to call one timeout to prevent a delay of game, which in week one with a brand new center, I think that's pretty encouraging. So I don't mind seeing Hurts make audibles at the line. I think it works well with his game. I think there was a little bit of hero ball, but I don't think that him changing the play of the line of scrimmage is a concern.
Okay. Now, let's go on to what impressed everybody, and I'm going to steal all your answers in one shot.
Yeah, go ahead, because I have a different answer, but I know the obvious one. Go ahead.
I also have a different answer, but go on.
Oh, wow. So maybe we all have different ansers.
I think
I'm only thinking we're
went away from the one. I think we purposely went away from the one, and so go ahead, Ryan.
Quinyon Mitchell is the real.
Not the answer.
I was not expecting that, but it's also not my biggest takeaway either.
But take that as a compliment because I feel like you guys we're in sync, right? At times.
I was like, say it, Brian. Who did well on your fantasy team, Brian?
He did well on my fantasy, and he did well on my parlay. I gotta talk to AJ about my parlay because he messed me up.
I'm sure he cares very much.
But Quinyon Mitchell, guys, like we have a freaking cornerback that's gonna grow with this team for the next 10 years, and he looked as advertised.
Bro,
I
shit,
mean,
he's like already a top corner from the looks of it last
bro,
night.
like
Yeah, it was kind of
the
wild to
closeout
see
speed,
that.
the awareness, the knowledge, like it was. And
Bro, he's a thumper too. Like,
yes, can we talk about him
he
yapping
can
to the
bring the
Green Bay
boom.
sideline? Like, oh god, it was everything I needed to see as a fan.
Yeah.
It was everything I needed to see as an analyst. Like, this was the game that we all waited to see. Obviously, Saquon Barkley had the game of the night, but we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Did Saquon play last night?
I think so. Was he wearing green?
No, man.
Quinyon Mitchell though is as advertised. I don't know the stat. I didn't look up the stats of how his game turned out. But he looked pretty damn good. Like it's one of those things where it's like, hey, when we move on from Darius Slay and Darius Slay rising to the sunset, we're good. We're good one way or another.
No, I feel pretty confident about it. There was one play. It was when they were in prevent, zone protection. So like, you can't criticize him too much for it, but he was like way off Jalen Reed on that one. But other than that, I think it was a pretty flawless game for a rookie's first game. One thing I have to bring up, just absolutely cold in that Malcolm Jenkins number. Like,
yes,
I'm so glad he changed that number. I feel like it makes you appreciate even more just how well he played. Honestly, it may be the reason he played even better than expected. But just seeing him rocking the Malcolm Jenkins, I hate to say it, I love Malcolm.
Jenkins is riding with him.
I love Malcolm. I hate to say it. That might be Q's number by the time his career's done. Like that was such a great start.
In Philly, sure, yeah.
I mean, it looked great. It kind of felt like Malcolm at times, just with how hard he hit guys. But this is beyond encouraging, and like I told Liam last night, like best corner in the draft, not named Nate Wiggins. So I'm just super excited about it.
Can we move on from the fact that I'm not a Giants fan? Like, can we stop this?
I mean, stop being a Giants fan, and then maybe we can move on.
I'm not a Giants fan, but there's.
Did you draft Saquon Barkley because he used to be a Giant?
What Zach and I have discovered is that there's people out there that watch and are starting to assume that there's a Giants fan on this panel. There's no Giants fans on this panel. I'm not going to name no names out there.
That's true.
So
he's not talking about fans watching. He's talking about like
other people watching,
notable people watching,
big old fans.
But yes, Quinyon Mitchell was my guy. Who was your guy? Whichever one wants to go first.
I'll go, and
I'll
Dr. Q68 kind of took it down there in the chat. I don't want to go with anything obvious because it's easy to go obvious. We can sit here and say Brown, Barkley. It's Bond, dude. 15 tackles.
15 tackles.
15 tackles, dude. 15 tackles, and I think it was also along with the 15 tackles, 2 sacks.
Well, there goes my Devin White parade.
Yeah, so Bond, man, it's absolutely Bond. Because here's the deal: the whole narrative from us is what are the linebackers, and then you have Devin White, who's out, not playing last night. By the way, kudos to Kobe Dean; he lit up somebody. That was fun to watch.
But he also dropped a sure pick 6 that would have sealed the game.
But you know what though? He was there to even make.
I expected that to be caught.
He was there to even defend that pass too. So it's like, you're denying a completion, which, by the way, I think for a lot of that game, in 3rd and long situations, you were just asking for a pass defended and no penalty. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of blown away by the linebacking group last night. And Bond, obviously having those numbers, 15 tackles. So I think it's kind of easy just to rest that on what impressed me from the defense that I wasn't expecting. Bond for sure.
Yeah, I think Bond is definitely probably the top guy where you like if you're looking for a defensive MVP, I think Bond, you have it there. If you're looking for the biggest surprise on the defense, I think the answer is still Zach Bond. I would say the guy who maybe impressed me the most is not completely accurate, but I was just pleasantly surprised with how he played was Nakobe Dean. And, he didn't have a perfect game, far from it. Obviously, we talked about the drop pass. He struggled at times in coverage. At times, he played pretty decent in coverage, too. And he was super solid stopping the run. All things considered, maybe I went in with extremely low expectations, and that's why he seems a little bit higher on my list. But I was pretty happy with what I saw in Nakobe Dean, and I feel pretty confident about this linebacking core moving forward, even without Devin White, So trade him or whatever, like that report that came out that they were trying to trade
go
him.
to the extreme now. Come on, it's so
bro. We haven't even seen Trot. I'm ready to find out about Trot now.
Show me everybody.
I'm feeling good. We got Bond, we got Trot, we got Dean. That's all we got, man. That's all we need. So we're good. Devin White, you got work ahead of you, man, and hopefully he loves that. Hopefully he loves the need to prove himself. I feel like that's something that any truly great NFL player needs, that desire to constantly prove themselves. And so Devin White, it's not going to be easy for him climbing up that depth chart now, but man, I'll tell you this: Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean definitely did themselves a lot of favors in this game.
Yeah, to that same point, it was me who was saying that Bond might be the guy that was brought in to kind of up the pressure for the people who were backing him up. Yeah, I was wrong.
I was super wrong.
He absolutely showed last night. Yeah. If last night's indicator of what's to come, that he should be a starting linebacker, probably to lead the group.
Yeah, he played in coverage. He stopped the run. He played inside. He played off the edge. And this is why, I wonder, was this man built to play with
Fangio's scheme?
Fangio?
Yeah.
The contract that he signed him for, was it a 1-year deal?
I think it was a 1 year. Yeah.
Oh God, this guy's gonna pay himself to a big contract, isn't he?
I don't think he's gonna get 15 tackles every game. I mean, this is the dude who signed for less.
That's
than
the expectation now.
Year, so.
When I go to every Eagles game to watch, this is the expectation. I expect 15 tackles and 2 sacks at bare minimum. Raise the standard.
The first linebacker to average to get over 200 tackles in a season.
Yeah, it is a 1 year for him. As a matter of fact, yeah.
Well, let's see. So we went over what impressed us, right?
One more thing, real quick, about the impressed part. And I know that we were going to bring up Barkley soon.
I was going to say it right now.
Okay, go ahead. Bring up
the guy that I really want to talk about, Saquon Barkley first.
Yeah, so
bring up the Barkley. Bring up the Barkley because you might say the same thing I was.
Bring up the Barkley.
Bring up the Barkley.
Let's bring up Saquon Barkley. To be honest, did anybody expect less?
It's what we expected.
I drafted him second overall in my fantasy league. Did anybody expect less?
It was the best game, introduction to the Eagles game that a player's had since T.O.
That's what I was going to say. Good. Nailed it.
I mean, really, it was just absolutely incredible game by Barkley. I would say that the thing that I am most impressed by is how he adapted to the field, right? And this is something that's so tough. We've talked about. Ron mentioned the defensive line not being able to get home. It was a struggle because of the conditions of the field, right? And I'm having flashbacks to the Super Bowl. At the same time, you look at Saquon and he just absolutely loses his legs out from under him on that first snap of the game. And you have Giants fans posting about how. It wasn't the Giants O-line. Barkley's just cooked. He sure as hell ain't cooked. I'll tell you that. He cooked last night is what he did. You see this guy, he makes the adjustment. He changes out his cleats and he just starts to thrive. I mean, between having that offensive freedom in the passing game, I absolutely loved it. I think they did not enough, but bringing out the two-back formation and bringing out Will Shipley and having him effectively run as that kind of distraction. And then you have Barkley open alongside with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The way that the game was called allowed Barkley to really thrive, but it was Barkley who took the game into his hands and just went nuclear, like just absolutely destroyed Green Bay. And I was not expecting it to be that bad. I was like, oh, I like a $120 and 1 or 2 touchdowns. I could see that. But you're talking about what did it end up being, like 150 yards and 3 touchdowns?
I think it was 150 total, and the first Eagles running back since 2019 to do so, with two rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown, since the infamous Jordan Howard, who I think we all loved near and dear. But I think you hit the nail on the head, right? They didn't do enough in the receiving game with Barkley, but like, dude, this guy is more than just as advertised. Like, this guy's strong as hell, he's smart as hell, and what impresses me most is like, the Eagles won a game with one of their playmakers taking over completely. Everybody else kind of fell to the wayside. I mean, A.J. Brown did have over 100 yards receiving, but it wasn't as impactful as Saquon with the ball in his hands. And the fact that one player could do that, imagine if you have a game where Devontae scores, A.J. Brown scores, Jalen rushes for a touchdown, Saquon rushes for a touchdown. Like, this offense, if somebody gets their fingers off of it, can be very, very, very elite.
You had a fun time with that AJ Brown 67-yard touchdown. That was a lot
I know you did. We both did because he's in my other fantasy league, so I know you did.
That touchdown, high five.
There we go. I didn't want to do it if you weren't going to do it, so that's why
I was going to do it. I was just like, hopefully he does it with me. I'm just not just
And Zach just missed a great, very wholesome
I'm
moment.
Sorry, I'm betting on a sports auction. What are we talking about?
You know what? Never mind.
Somebody outbid me for.
Sometimes, Zach, I don't believe I know you.
I'm betting on a autographed Nick Foles copy of his book, and somebody just outbid me for it. So I'm a little.
Speaking of Foles, that touchdown pass to Barkley reminded me of the Foles pass to Clement.
Yes,
yeah, for sure.
So
I feel like Carson had a pass like that to Clement as well. So now that we got it out the bag, what impressed us? What
I got a lot that concerned me too.
I know Zach has a big concern for a specific player out there, so I'm not going to take that player.
I'll go last on this because I don't know what you guys are going to say.
Okay.
So
what concerns?
I don't know
me
what
right
Brian's
now,
referring to, so I got to figure out what that is.
Oh, sorry. I mean, I can take it if you want.
No. You take something else. Let me think about it. I can probably figure it out.
All right, cool. I think what concerned me most was just the inconsistencies of the play calling on offense. It seemed like they wanted to get Saquon his touches, but at the same time, they wanted to make sure they got the other guys the touches. There was great times where they set the temperature, and they actually, were able to navigate through it and get everybody, in sync. But then there was other times where I just feel like they were rushing things and they didn't know what to do. Which, again, as you play at least a series in preseason or two, this wouldn't be so much of an issue. But the fact that they were able to navigate through it, it's less of a cause for concern. But my concern is just, don't let this bleed into week 2. Don't let this bleed into week 3. Like last year, they let this bleed too much into every other week to the point where they ended up collapsing because of it. Nip it in the bud. Just get in sync. Whatever you guys have to do, just make sure you guys are on the same page. But that was it. It just felt unorganized play calling wise on offense. I don't know if that's a Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni thing, or that's a Jalen Kellen Moore thing. Whatever case may be, you got to nip it in the bud because, as everybody saw, nobody was apparently expecting the Eagles to win last night from the national media. I think there was like 2 people from last night's game that picked them to win. There was like 7 people that picked the Packers, but everywhere else it was Packers. The Eagles beat a playoff caliber team on prime time, and they did it without playing their best ball. Let's not say that after every game. Find a way to play your best ball and rock with that consistently.
God, I'm so happy you said that because if the narrative is we haven't played our best game yet, and I have to ask when are we going to, and it's week 10, I'll lose my mind. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so Brian, I have quite a few. So now I'm not quite sure where. I know we talked about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Is that where you're headed?
So I'll pivot away from that one. I'll pivot away from that one. I had 2, and that was one.
I'll focus on Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for a minute, and really, I'm going to focus on the safety group. I'm not trying to pick on CJ. I'm not trying to pick on CJ. the safety group did not play good enough. I understand Reed Blankenship had the pick, did not play well outside of that pick, if you ask me. I think the safety group was out of place several times throughout the night. CJ was for sure out of place on that big touchdown. It was the 70-yard bomb. Yeah, he was out of place. He's already responded to the fans, and that's what you get with him. Like you're not saying like, oh, we're going to sign CJ to be, a leader, to be, that hard-nosed defensive player. Like he wears his emotions outright. My bigger thing is like, dude, like you gotta you can't talk shit if you're gonna play like shit. Like that's the biggest thing to me. So you had a bad game. Take it on the chin, play better in the next game, and show people who you are, because we all know that he's capable of playing better than he played last night. But the safety group overall, including CJ, did not play well last night. And Brian, you said it. I lost track because I stopped listening after a while. But I think you said sign Justin Simmons like 18 times. Like, this is why you should have signed Justin Simmons before he went to Atlanta. Not just, because of the depth, because you also said it when CJ came out with that hand injury. And it's not just the depth. You also said it based off the play. And you're right. Like, that is why you should have gone out and signed. And we'll see what Justin Simmons looks like. That could always be maybe they didn't like what they saw out of him. But the answer can't be, or shouldn't be rather, well, they saw what they had and they liked what they had. Because on paper, it wasn't good enough. And now you have the result and the early returns, so that is still not good enough. And maybe that gets a little bit better when Sidney Brown comes back. He's coming off of a major injury. I don't expect that to be this year. I think long-term, he's going to be a great solution. I don't think this year's the year to count on Sidney Brown. Reed Blankenship is a great third safety. That's something that everyone has said for a long time. And CJ, he's just got to play better, man. And I know he's capable of it, but he's just got to do it.
Yeah, you nailed it with the safety. Pretty much the whole group there was a huge concern, if not the only concern, pretty much, of the defense.
I got one more concern on the defense, but you go ahead. We'll circle
back, because I'm sure that there's a little bit going on there. Like, some players they were pretty transparent, if you will. I think I'm kind of getting to where you might be going there. So to much finer and smaller details. Concern number one: the tush push ain't doing shit for us.
It's dead, dude. It's
dead. That's concern number one. Concern number two is the Packers shouldn't have had the ball and to finish the game. The Packers shouldn't have had the ball to even have their position to be put in a position for Love to get hurt. The reason why the Packers shouldn't have had the ball is because why do you take timeouts when you are the team in the red zone when the Packers have taken pretty much every timeout before the 2-minute warning? Run the damn clock out. You fumbled. On snaps.
They should have given it to Saquon right there.
Saquon Barkley probably had the top
knee.
5 biggest plays of the game.
It's just take the knee. It's what you should have did there. Just run out the clock, take the knee, do what you need to do there. Just get out and safely get out with the win. That's all you need. Who cares if you win by 1? If you win by 5, you win. Only people who care about that are people who bet on the spread, which not me. So, but at the same time, I saw a lot of boneheaded football IQ decisions, whether it was, some players or from the coaching staff making decisions to even continue to press plays. It felt like at some times for the Eagles, week 1 football, so they were working out kinks pretty much everywhere on this team, but it felt like there was nothing between the ears. And so obviously that's a huge concern.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think you talk about the coaching staff and you have to question the decision making. You talk about Jalen Hurts, you have to question the decision making. There's a handle on that cut, by the way, in case you're interested in using that. But the one thing that I do,
I got to show the logo.
Trying to show the
logo.
Yes.
I mean, if I do it like this, well, I guess it works still. Fine.
It works if you use the handle. You see the logo still.
I'm just like, well, so the only reason why I didn't do that is I like look at my knuckles. All right, I was going to say I thought my hand was going to go across if I grabbed it like Andre the Giant. Like, like never mind. Whatever.
Well, so anyway, so we're talking about the decision making, and it was highly questionable. Last night for sure at times. You talk about the tush push. The NFL is constantly working on ways to undermine the tush push, actively working against you. You have now lost Jason Kelsey, who was the key to the tush push. You have replaced him with a center who already caused a turnover earlier in the night. And you're talking about a guy in Jalen Hurts who got beat the hell up last year doing it. That's very good, Rob. That's very good.
So I never identified with a Ron K text more. So awesome, Ron.
But so the tush push, on top of that, you added the second best running back of the past 10 years in the NFL. Like, why are we going to continue to beat our heads into the ground and try and do the tush push? Like, just let it go.
That seems like a Sirianni thing where it's just like the pride is like, yeah, they can't stop
shit
it.
Beat out of him running it yesterday. Like,
yeah.
I'm afraid for that guy's life. And I don't have a ton to say in defense of Jalen Hurts, but Sirianni and the coaching staff did him no favors trying to run the tush push again and again and again. It's just let it die, move on. You have honestly, he might be the best running back in the NFL this season. Saquon Barkley, just I can't say enough about how full of pride you have to be to run the tush push instead of handing the ball to Saquon frickin' Barkley. So this to me, if you continue to do this, I don't care what success the Eagles have this season. There's enough between the still influence on the offense you see from Sirianni and the consistent use of the tush push. Kellen Moore's not doing the tush push. Like, I mean, come on. Like,
say what your chest. Say what you really want to say.
I'm trying to censor myself here.
I'll say this. I think there's a plan for the tush push still. Okay, instead of like 4th and 1, go for it 1st and 10. No one's
the plan should be to put it in the bin.
Or hear me out. They got creative last year with the tush push, where it's like, hey, Jalen fakes it like he's going down. They'd pass it back to DeAndre Swift. You have Saquon Barkley. You could be creative. Like, I don't mind having a tush push around if you're going to be creative with it.
Why are we recreating the wheel? Be creative. Give the ball to the Italians. Like, just do it. Like, you have one of the greatest offensive weapons in the NFL. Get it in his hand. Dude. It's 3rd and 1. Hand it off to the bell cow. Like, it's not that deep. Like,
I think Green it's a pride thing. It has to be a pride thing.
Him, right? And even if they do, all right, well, you had pretty good odds. Like, there's just no rhyme or reason to it other than like, oh no, we came up with this. We feel pretty good about it. We're going to prove once again that we're the only ones who can do it. Well, guess what? You can't do it because Jason Kelsey's not moving the ball up anymore. Jason Kelsey's not, snapping the ball early anymore. Like, you're not having these advantages that I won't use this.
But the hard count worked. I mean, that was pretty. To me, that was an intelligent move by Jalen. Was kind of like, hey, like we can fool you guys now. You guys think we're gonna do it?
Okay,
call the hard count, get a first down.
I understand that the tush push does give a little bit of an advantage to a hard count. Hard count could have worked either way. Like, you don't need the tush push to pull off a successful hard count. You need the
tush push, according to Nick Sirianni.
You absolutely do not need the Brazilian butt lift, as they were calling it last night in the streets. Like, it's just
I missed that. That's awesome.
Not necessary.
I'm sure the Brazilian butt lift looks a lot better than that tush push last night.
It didn't lift anybody last night. I mean, it was terrible. Jalen Hurts is getting his brains bashed in. I'm sick of it.
Ron brings up a good point. When a tush push fails, we don't lose yards. When a running back fails, we lose.
But they fumbled the fucking ball, Ron. I'm sorry. Like, are you kidding me?
I was waiting for that version.
You pushed me too far. I was trying to be a good boy, but like, I can't anymore.
So you got Zach hopped up on coffee. Now you're going to try to make points. Jesus.
All right, so I was the tush push. We could throw it into the bag of concern. Going forward. Um, the good thing is, hey, the Eagles have what like 10 days until they play their next game, so a little bit of a mini bye to get their stuff together. Um, player of the game.
We know.
Do we though? Like I don't know.
Oh, I
'Cause
know. It's
it could
definitely
go one or
Barkley.
two
It's
ways.
100%
I think you got to
Barkley.
go offensive, defensive on this.
Okay,
Like,
all right, cool.
Okay.
Offensive player of the game, Cam Jurgens. No,
Jesus.
Yeah. Great
Are you
Calcaterra.
want to trigger Zach again?
by the way, what did they elevate Jack Stoll last night or no?
I don't think so.
I
Because
didn't check.
No,
Call me
they
crazy.
did. They elevated Nick Gates and EJ Jenkins, who actually did get a few snaps in there.
Yes, he did. But
Okay.
Jack Stoll is a better blocking tight end. Why was Grant Calcaterra in there blocking? Where it's
Is that
not
what
a
you
knock
call
on
it?
Grant.
Because I don't think you could technically call it blocking after watching Calcaterra.
Flopping.
Dude, I'll tell you this. I watched that Ravens Chiefs game, and I've never been more ready to draft a tight end next year. Like I need it to happen. And that's not a thing about Goddard, because Goddard played great last night, and Hurts is really comfortable with Goddard. It's just that there is use in having a solid backup tight end. I think we're seeing that across. The Chiefs just extended their backup tight end who plays behind
Correct.
Travis Kelce. Like,
Yes.
Right.
there is actual legitimacy to having a capable secondary tight end. Buffalo even is going to rely on that heavily this year between Dalton Kincaid and Knox. So
I mean,
I'm
so
not
is
saying
Tampa
you need
Bay. They got
Tampa
Hopkins.
Bay. Like, it's another great example. Like, you don't need to go out and get another, like an Isaiah Likely. That'd be great if you did land a guy like that, but you don't need to go out and say give up a first round pick to drafting a tight end. But I need somebody. This is why I wanted Jatavion Sanders in the draft. I'm a big Jatavion Sanders guy. I think he's going to do well in Carolina, as well as anyone can do in Carolina. But you need to go out and you need to get a guy like that who, he's capable of blocking, he's capable of chipping, and on top of that, he's capable in the receiving game. Kyle Katerra can only catch the ball. That's it. I need to see, and Jack Stoll pretty much can just block. Like, that's kind of the problem. That's why Jenkins is a guy that I'm interested in, as a developmental guy. The Eagles have burned through developmental guy after developmental guy after developmental guy, and none of them have worked so far. So I don't want any more of the Albert O's. I don't want the Calcaterras. I don't want the Jack Stolls. Go out and get a legitimate tight end who can then grow into Dallas Goedert's role, because I don't think they're going to pay Goddard again. So
that means you're drafting a tight end second or third round.
Isn't Goddard's contract like ending up this season or something, if I'm mistaken?
It's coming up.
It's either this season or next.
I think it's next season, but I could be wrong about that.
It's coming up.
Okay.
It'll be around the corner. I guess my question now that we're on tight ends is that
what you want to talk about? Tight ends?
Just before we get to the player of the game. For
both
we
want to talk about tight ends.
Okay. All right. Johnny Wilson blocking on the outside. He got a lot of praise from Jason Kelce. Not a lot of fans didn't really praise him. Now, I can see why. He had an iffy game, at best. But there were times where I'm like, look at this man block. He's not necessarily doing a bad job for a rook. And this is a wide receiver that we're talking about, hey, putting him in as a tight end or maybe fixturing him over as a tight end.
That wouldn't be
so. Is there an opportunity where that can be a fix? That can be a solution?
It could possibly be. I mean, this if it's early on in his career to do that, I thought they would do it. They would have done it already.
Right.
But after seeing him last night, like I wouldn't be surprised if they start testing it out within the coming weeks, where it's like you see Dallas Goedert and Johnny Wilson lined up together as opposed to Ground Calcaterra. It's one of those players that and I'm not trying to compare the two, but like a Cooper DeJean, like you could throw Cooper anywhere on the defense and expect some type of results, which will help you filter out where he needs to be. I feel like Johnny Wilson is in that caliber where you could throw him at tight end, you could throw him at wideout, see what the results are, and throw him to his best fit.
Okay, I got it. All right. Johnny Wilson. First of all, Philly's right. Johnny doesn't want to play tight end. Beyond that,
Oh, okay.
he doesn't block. Like that's the thing. Like you need a blocking capable guy. And
But
Johnny,
my thing is, he's young. He could get better at it as opposed to these other guys.
Yeah, he's definitely a project in that aspect. That's kind of where I was getting at too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great. I did just, go off a little bit of a rant about how I'm sick and tired of the project. So I'm not going to.
Yeah, it's fair too. He did say that
about that idea. I want a guy who's good now. And Philly podcast, asked how many weapons I want on offense. I want all of them. I want all the weapons on offense. And part of it is until Jalen Hurts gets his decision making right, you have to surround him with everything. But also, trying to win a Super Bowl, getting a second tight end is not that difficult. Mm-hmm. So again, like you don't have to use a first round pick on this kind of guy. He's a good blocker for a receiver, but blocking at receiver and blocking at tight end is completely different. You're not laying the type of chip blocks as a receiver that you do as a tight end. You're not having to hold the line as effectively as 6 offensive linemen at times. At Ronald, please, I'm begging you.
So who is your project player of the game?
Oh no. I
guess going to hell in a handbasket.
This is like Project Pat, right? 3-6 Mafia. All right. Player of the game, offense. Let's go around the board real quick and just say Barkley.
Saquon saved the game. He carried the team.
Barkley.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley. Want to go around the board on defense and just say Bond?
Zach Bond.
Brian,
don't be an idiot. Don't.
Zach's like,
I don't know. CJ looked pretty. No.
Zach is like, dude, if you don't say the one.
Zach Bond. I think he caught me by surprise. I knocked the signing because I was like, this is an unknown guy. Like we got Devin White. Devin White's a splash. It's clear. I don't know anything on defense. And it's very clear Vic Fangio knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I was very surprised as we said in the beginning of the show from the linebacking group. Were you more positively influenced last night by the linebackers or by the corners? Because it's a hard get. It's a hard shot there because both were good.
Corners.
Okay.
Yeah, to me the cornerbacks, right? Because again, potentially you're seeing Quinyon Mitchell develop into what could be a lockdown corner, which we haven't had in God knows how long. It's not a knock on Darius Slay, but we did get Darius Slay at the end of his career. So to me, like that was great to see. I'm not a big fan of what we saw out of Avonte Maddox. Granted, Avonte Maddox is coming off a big injury. He needs to get his feet underneath him, and last night's field was not the place to get his feet underneath him. But other than that, like the cornerbacks impressed me just because the cornerbacks were bleeding heavily last season.
For sure. But the two things real quick. One, just on the corners themselves. People talking about Isaiah Rodgers getting fired on his day off. While funny, the way Avonte Maddox played, I think kind of stopped that from happening. I think that you're going to be looking at Q playing the slot a lot. And worst case scenario, you can see Isaiah Rodgers move to the slot, which I don't expect. But it's still a possibility. I would say just based on the way the slot position has evolved and some of the teams that the Eagles are going to play, you're going to be looking at Q in the slot. But it's a possibility that they can be a little bit flexible with it. Cooper DeJean. Do
you think that stunts his growth a little bit?
What's that?
Do you think that I know I want to say the wrong word, but do you think like after seeing him play outside corner so well last night, do you honestly feel like do you think it would have hurt him to go into the slot?
No,
okay.
I think they're confident he can play anywhere, and I think honestly they may even do it based on matchup and just put him on the best receiver. So he'll play outside. Not that they play the Bengals, but he'll play outside against a Jamar Chase type. He'll play inside against a CD Lamb, and that's just how they're gonna rock with it, I think. And you could be looking at a guy like Slay doesn't follow, right? Slay stays on his side. He doesn't move around the field, so you're gonna keep Slay there, and then from there on, you're gonna put Q on the best receiver, whether it's in the slot or on the outside. That's what I would do. That's what I believe the takeaway would be. And if anything, they might handcuff him to the slot more than handcuff him to the outside.
Okay, fair.
And Philly brings up about the Gardner Johnson video afterwards when he was just sitting there.
Why do you guys want to keep Zach hot?
Here's the deal. When you talk that talk, and your 2 missed tackles were literally like, touchdowns and making Jaden Reed look like, Jerry Rice out there. My thing is this. I would like for you to talk that talk if you're going to be the Gardner Johnson from the previous Eagles era. Okay? That's fine. Don't talk that talk when you're Jalen Mills era.
No.
When you're Jalen Mills burnt toast era.
Damn.
Okay? And if you want and if
you went there.
And if you want to sit there and say, because I'm reading the whole thing here. I'm like, if you want to sit here and, take your shots at fans who are recognizing this, listen, maybe use this as motivation. Maybe, if you're going to go up and, not make the tackles and they're going to be costly tackles that you missed.
Right.
Hey, we get that tackles are missed, but make the play. Because people are going to remember Reed Blankenship making a play. That's what they're going to remember from last night. And they're also going to remember Jaden Reed making the dance to the end zone.
Brian, I knew the second Duck put his comment that you were going to put it up there. So Brian doesn't care too much about CJ doing this because he says that's what you signed up for. And that is, to be fair,
They made their bet. They knew what
that is true. But as I told you earlier, Brian, that is not a defense. It
reminds me of all the reasons why, I was irritated with Slay, and I'm not going to just be irritated with Slay, then not pass it off.
Slay has consistently performed though for Philadelphia.
That's fair
the difference.
Too.
That's the difference. And CJ talking about his missed tackles, and I get it. You're probably getting a lot of fans coming at him about his missed tackles. I'm more worried about where the hell is he on the field. The bigger issue is that he's out of position, and are you putting that on Fangio? Maybe, but the big 70-yard bomb that he gave up, he was looking at the quarterback. He wasn't looking at the receiver. That's the problem. Right. He was looking to make the big play instead of the right play, and that's why that play got off. So that's my issue with it. Blind confidence is fine. It's usually more of a cornerback or a wide receiver trait than a safety trait. It's fine. You have to play competently. I'm not asking you to be a star if you're going to talk shit. Play competently. You can't play like you did last night and, come all out in your feelings.
That's exactly it. That's exactly 100% it.
That's the biggest problem. So if he can even play average, then I'm fine with him acting like this. If he's going to play like shit, he can't act like this. And it again, like you said, it is what it is. But it's
I come from a different
bigger problem
on this too. I come from a different aspect on this too, and I know Zach and Brian, you guys will understand probably what I'm going to say. I know football is an emotional game. You want to know what else is an emotional game? Hockey. And do you think John Tortorella would sit there and say, "Hey, spout off at the mouth"? You do all this, do all that. Yeah, he might, and he might defend, somebody for sitting there and saying some dumb things, but he would call it dumb. That's the thing. He would call it for what it is. This isn't exactly the smartest thing to do. Yeah, the Eagles win. It's a team win. But at the end of the day, the performance evaluation, when we're sitting here and talking about the safeties being probably the weakest part of the defense last night, and you're one of them,
yeah.
you got to know when they kind of, back yourself up and not. So
I'm glad you brought up Torts, because if there was an NFL parallel, and maybe some people would say Belichick, but I do feel like the Eagles defensive coordinator is kind of right up there too.
Yeah, Fangio's there.
I don't see Fangio messing around with that. I don't think Fangio's gonna he may brush it off because he just doesn't give a shit, but at the same time, CJ acting like that in practice, that's not stuff that Fangio's gonna, he'll call him out for not playing. So, I do have some confidence in that, but it's just, and I don't care enough to say it's a problem or anything like that. I don't think it's a problem. For me, it's more of a character flaw than anything, but it is what it is. I'm not worried about him bleeding into the mentality of the team. I'm not worried about this. I'm worried about him positioning himself right defensively. That's, again, all my concerns with CJ are really on the field. So while personally, if you're asking my opinion, no, I don't like what he said. I don't like the video. I don't like this or that. Honestly, I don't care. I just want him to play well on the field. That's what I care about. That's my biggest problem with him right now.
Yeah, if he spoke exactly like that after coming up with the interception and making sure tackles last night, you would not hear this whole segment.
Bro, even if he just stops the touchdown, like that's it. Like again, I'm not asking a lot. Like that's my small ask is just make the plays that you should make the plays you're supposed to make.
My thing about it is, and I know you, excuse me, I know you said that you're not concerned about it spilling into the culture of the team, anything of that sort. You just want to do, you want the play to back up the talk. I'm 100% for that. But this also feels like since CJ re-signed, he's been loose with his words. Last year, Darius Slay was open with his words and was completely torched by media, by fans all season long. This is at a greater level, in my opinion. And this, if I'm the head coach of a team, if I'm the defensive coordinator, if I'm the GM, I love CJ, right? I love his mentality. I love what he brings, the edge he brings. Great. But there's a level to this. Like you got to understand this is, I don't go to work and if I mess up on my stats, I'm not, yapping at the mouth at the office. Like that's not, I get fired for that. I get you're getting paid millions of dollars, but you're also getting paid millions of dollars to be responsible with what you say, with how you act, and with how you deliver things. Fans are going to be fans at the end of the day. It's a different age of football. Football players are very open to what they want to say. But what I took on a look at this to compare this, right? Jalen Hurts was asked about the blitz, and his words, I notice everything that's out there. Just bring it to the media. CJ Gardner-Johnson went on a rant about fans saying he missed tackles. There's different levels of leadership and different levels of respect that you have there. If I'm Nick, I'm proud of what Jalen did. But if I'm Nick, I'm like, okay, like I gotta talk to CJ. We gotta nip this in the bud because this is Philly. This is not a town where you can come in and you can't bully the fans. This is not New York. This is not any
when
other.
they say you can't bully the fans, like the one thing that I will say is like you can't bully the fans because the fans won't let you. Like it's
That's
not
exactly
that
it.
It's not that like, oh, it won't work or this or that, or you're gonna, desensitize the fan base to you or whatever. Like if they think you're being a dickhead, they're gonna call you a dickhead. Like
that's what I'm saying. Like this isn't a place for that. You can't do that to them because they're gonna give it back to you. Like they're not gonna. Philly fans don't back down.
He knows that because he's been here. Like if I can be kind of a dick to CJ now, like because I feel like I'm kind of pushed into this corner. CJ was not brought in to be a leader, and CJ is not an important enough player for this to matter as much as what we talked about with Darius Slay last year. That's effectively where I'm at. So, like,
I would beg to differ. Like CJ was brought in to be a difference maker on his defense.
No.
That was the whole objective, like to bring that edge back, that mentality back, that swagger back to this defense that was lacking last year.
And Slay's been your lockdown corner for how many years? Like
that's fair.
Like you're talking about a contributing starter, and yeah, the edge is fine and whatever, but like Darius, I think people are undervaluing what Darius Slay was supposed to have meant, and I would say mostly has meant to this defense. Like CJ was great when he was here the first time around. Dealt with a lot of injury and struggles last year. I don't think anyone who had the expectation that he was just going to come back and be exactly who the Eagles had previously, I think that was incorrect and poorly thought out. I think that he was obviously signed to be a contributor, and you can say difference maker, but like you said, there's levels to a lot of things. There's levels to being a difference maker. Like you want a starting safety to be a strong contributor and be like a baseline difference maker. He was not brought in to transform this defense. Like that's maybe give it a little extra bark, but nobody expected, the defense to become a top 5 defense because they added CJ Johnson.
Fair. That's fair. So Jimmy, one of our contributors at PSN, that's blocking Zach. Morning, gentlemen. Glad to start the season with a win. Was
what
curious
did you say about me?
He's blocking you. It wasn't a knock again. Yo, you're really hot.
I am hot, because you and Ron, so help me.
Was curious to hear your thoughts on the game being in Brazil. Do you think it was a success and a good display of NFL's product? You feel better now?
I do actually feel a little bit better. I said some. I actually felt a little bad about some of the things I said about you just now.
What if he was unmuted and he just heard like, "Oh my God, canceled."
I might be fired from BSN if that actually got out there.
Oh no.
Do you think it was a
Ron K, Italian man makes offensive Oh man.
Never.
Do you think it was
So
a
what's going on
success
with
and a
my
good
team,
display
Jimmy?
of NFL's product in Brazil?
I mean,
what was the aim? Like, that's the thing. Like
yeah.
you can say it was a success. Like, oh yeah, there was a ton of fans in Brazil. The NFL made a lot of money. So from that, right, it was, yeah, sure, it was a success. The other flip of that coin, like, a player got hurt because of the shitty field. Like, people can talk about Jalen Carter all they want. He made a football play on a crap field, and that's what happened to Jordan Love. Like, so, like, the NFL continues to make these decisions without a care of the local fan base and without a care of the players' health and well-being. I'm not one who's big into that whole, like, you got to be careful in Brazil, this and that. Like, no, I'm not afraid of Sao Paulo or anything like that. I think that part of it's fine. To me, it's more like you have to make decisions from a health standpoint that are beneficial to the players. And that all starts with the field. And the NFL has shown over the years, they don't care about the health of their players. And they have shown that specifically when it comes to the conditions of the field.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, what is the aim? Like,
yeah, that's a big part of it too. Like, before last night's game, before there was an announcement even of a game being in Brazil, what was the footprint of American football in Brazil for the NFL to even matter to bring a game to Brazil? If there's like, if there's a Brazilian team of just like on an international level, kind of like how we saw Japan beat America in football. Like, if there's a Brazilian team like that, then there's at least an impression. I'm like, okay, maybe the NFL brings the game there. I don't know that. Not going to really comment too much further on that because, what is the aim is darn the question that it's, quite frankly, a little bit more research into that would probably give you a name. But overall, it being a good product of last night, it's kind of a mixed bag. I think the drama in the game last night, the close scoring, and obviously, two teams playing down to the wire. That was a good product. It was a good game to watch. Little nuances along the way, like Brazil got a game where literally kickoffs were stupid, and that rule needs to be abolished. Like, if it's around for 1 year, great. But it's oh my God, like, I understand they're trying to make the game safer or something, but if it's making the game safer, I mean, that's out for debate because let's look at the studies on that and maybe talk about it another time.
Make the game safer. You want to make the fields better at the end of the day. They need to revamp all these fields.
Well, one would think that uses logic, Brian, and that's not really the NFL's MO.
Yeah, and
I'm glad you complimented my logic.
That's kind of what we were getting at there. It's kind of like the NFL hasn't necessarily taken the huge steps outside of, like, the helmets and the styrofoam, whatever they're doing with the helmets anymore, making it to a point where the concussions are, I guess,
the Spaceballs helmets.
Those, what I'm talking about, Spaceballs helmet. But that's exactly what I was going for there. But I mean, like, decent enough display, sure, but it's not the football. It's still, to this day, like, if that's your first exposure to football in Brazil, it's not the football that we've known for literally our whole lives.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a correct display, but for what the display can be this season, I don't think it was a bad one.
And it doesn't feel like the same aim, like with the London games, where, like, they've been talking for years, like, I want to expand the NFL to London, like, create some teams out there, which to me still makes zero sense because of the flight traveling.
Well, also NFL Europe went so well.
England has a football team. They have the London Silly Nannies, and they played the New England Patriots. I think that we can all. We obviously, you can't forget about that game.
London Silly Nannies?
They're really called the Silly Nannies?
They played Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. You don't remember this?
He's pulling. This is another
like the mid-2000s.
This
The
is an
silly
Italian
nannies?
joke.
No, this has to be like a
Yeah, Peter Griffin led the charge for the silly nannies. You don't remember
Oh,
this?
Jesus Christ. All right. The fucking silly nanny. Yeah, Theater's family got it. I was just like, I missed where that happened.
that was throwing me for a loop.
I was about to say, do you mean Jacksonville Jaguar?
Yeah, pretty much. It's all 6 one, half dozen the other.
So moving on from the silly nannies, it was a good game for the Eagles. Obviously, we expressed that they have a lot of room to grow, a lot of room to fix things. They do have about, I think, like 9 to 10 days before they play their next game on Monday Night Football, where they take on the Falcons in an actual home game. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I think we pretty much covered it all.
Ahead of that game, if anyone is in Philly, check out the tailgating scene. And then there's also going to be a party at Xfinity Live pregame celebrating Nick Foles' official retirement. So that's going to be Nick Foles' big retirement game. Fletcher Cox and Bud Light are throwing a party at Xfinity. And of course, the tailgating scene is going to be insane. Mm-hmm. I will be at both. So definitely be sure to come out if you're in the Philly area. And let's link up and go Birds.
Yeah, are you going to the game or are you going to the tailgating?
I'm not going to the game. So I am working.
He's drinking.
I'm writing an article on tailgating in Philly. So
I'm writing an article on beer.
Basically, yes. So I get to go to I get to be on the clock and go tailgating, and then go to Xfinity Live for a party, and that's work for me now. So that's
do you get like a family and friends ticket, like?
To what, Xfinity?
No, to work.
No, unfortunately.
Bring your co-host to work day.
I got an invite to there's a cookie shop, Taylor Chip Cookie, which amazing cookies. So definitely check that out.
Wait. What was Taylor Swift cookies?
Yeah,
Taylor Chip. So they're opening.
Okay, I literally thought you said Taylor Swift. I was like, what the fuck?
They're opening 2 Philly locations on the 21st. Definitely check them out. One's in Fishtown. The other is, I can't remember off the top of my head because I know I'm going to the Fishtown location because that's where I am most comfortable in Philly. Definitely check out Taylor Chip. Well, I just mean because like that's where I spent my college years, and it's just
we weren't judging you. It's okay.
I mean, Philly's a lot different from my college years. To be
fair. The word comfort, I think gives the wrong connotation. I'm comfortable anywhere in Philly. It's just that like it's like nostalgic for me to be in Fishtown, like going to Barcade, Johnny Brenda's. That's fair.
That's absolutely fair.
Like that's all I mean by I'm comfortable everywhere in Philly. It's just like, it almost feels like, my in-city home is what I'm saying. Cause I spent a lot of, overnight trips in there, but Duck's going to eat half my food and drink, half my beer. Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah, no, but definitely check out the tailgating tour. I'll be linking up with Philaticus, who obviously we know is friend of PSN.
Shout out to Dylan.
We're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So
sounds like a good time. But yeah, other than that, I think we gave you guys an hour and a half of our chaotic morning.
Almost an hour and a half. Yeah.
Now we know not to let Zach drink coffee in the morning.
Yeah, well, just wait till Tuesday when I start talking about trains.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Brian Cameron.
What's your favorite train?
Reese and Zach Chavalella. We are we're flipping the birds.
Go Birds!
Yes, sir. Flip